Hi guys, James again, back with another video, and this was another one I had been working on, and it changed a few times from when I initially made it, and then I had scratched out a lot of it. I don't know why I was making it before, and then with a movie I watched, two movies I watched recently, made it onto this list, and then a few other ones I considered. And this one is top 10 mysteries, mystery films. And this might be one of the few lists, if not one of the only ones, where I don't actually, for any number of reasons, I don't actually own any of the posters for any of these movies, so I can't point them out. Which is just whatever. Some of them are older, before I would have had access to posters, be it at Rogers or the theater, or just in general. Anyway, let me see. Okay, so we'll start with number 10. Number 10 is Unknown. No, it's not one I don't know or am not aware of. This is the movie called Unknown from 2006. Not to be confused with the Liam Neeson film, which is pretty good. Not one of Joan Collet-Serra's better films, but his kind of go hit and miss a little. Even the ones with Liam Neeson, some are great, some are just all right. This is from 2006, and this one is directed by Simon Brand, and it actually has a pretty great cast. You've got Jim Caviezel, Greg Kinnear, Bridget Moynihan, Joe Pantoliano, Barry Pepper, Jeremy Sisto, Peter Stormare. And essentially this one is, the movie opens up and there's this warehouse and a bunch of guys scattered across the room, all unconscious. One of the guys is tied up and shot, and they're all dressed differently, and they pretty much wake up, and none of them, they all have some form of amnesia. They don't know why they're there, what's going on, who anyone else is, who they are, and the goal is to figure that out. And as the movie goes on, it turns out that a rich guy named, where do they say his name? Named William Coles Jr. has been kidnapped and is being held for ransom. So, not sure how much I want to say about this one. This isn't a spoiler video, but having a big room full of people who none of them know who anyone else is, including themselves, and there being some crime involved, who's involved in the crime, who's a victim of the crime, you have no idea, and neither do they, until pretty much the end of the film. I thought it was really interesting. Not one of my favorite ones, but I think it's definitely worth a look. It's called Unknown. All right, number 9. We have a TV movie called Murder in Greenwich, and this it's based on a true story, and based on a book written by the police detective Mark Fuhrman, who was involved in the O.J. Simpson trial. And you have, I mean, it's Christopher Maloney from Law & Order SVU playing Mark Fuhrman. And he's no longer a detective, and he becomes aware of this 20-some-odd-year-old unsolved murder of Martha Moxley, who was murdered on Halloween 1975, and as of 1997 the murder was still unsolved. So Fuhrman decides to go down there to Greenwich to investigate on his own. And because of the stigma associated with his name, on what things that came out while the O.J. Simpson trial was going on in his testimony. He has a bit of a stain on his reputation, so no one is eager to help him at all. So he's pretty much going alone on this. And this one could have been and I think temporarily was on the true story list, but I ended up bumping it off. But luckily, I was able to find a place for it on this one for mysteries, because it is a mystery, and it's one that he's trying to solve. And it's really well done. It is really interesting. I haven't seen it again in a long time, but it was one of those ones that always stuck with me. I really enjoyed it, and I just always kept it around for whenever I'm going to watch it again. And this gives me a chance to talk about it, because I don't think I have much with anyone. Murder, let me see, you've also got Robert Forster in there, John Foster, the brother of Ben Foster, Maggie Grace, and yeah, it is a good one. Directed by Tom McLaughlin. So that is Murder in Greenwich. Number 8, we have a film from 2015 called Mr. Holmes. And this involves an elderly Sherlock Holmes towards the end of his life. And he's long since retired from his work with Dr. Watson. And he's, I believe, at the time of the film, he's 93 years old. And he's struggling with, I don't know if it's dementia or Alzheimer's. He can't recall a lot these days, and he's fixating on one of the very last case he worked on with Watson, and the book that Watson wrote after, which he doesn't believe was the truth of what happened, but he's having trouble remembering exactly what did transpire. So like he lives with a housekeeper and her young son, and he practices beekeeping and stuff, and recalls his trips to Japan, meeting with certain individuals, and he also has this thing where on the cuffs of his dress shirts, the white shirts, he takes this pin and dips it in, I think, ink, or he scratches it on there. He scratches like certain names so that he can remember who he's talking to, because he's slowly losing his memories and stuff. And it's a really, really, really well done film by Bill Condon, who is a frequent collaborator with. I didn't mention who it stars. The aged Mr. Holmes is played by Ian McKellen. Housekeeper is played by Laura Linney. And you've also got Hiroyuki Sanada, an actor I really, really enjoy watching. Last Samurai, Lost, Westworld, Sunshine. Oh man, he is so good. I'm still hoping to find the movie he did, the Japanese movie called Twilight Samurai. I don't really recognize a lot of the other names of the actors in the movie, but yeah, it's a very, very, very well done movie, and Ian McKellen always does a fantastic job. But that one is called Mr. Holmes. Number 7, we have a film from 1998 by Jake Kasdan called Zero Effect. And this was an early film by Jake Kasdan, who went on to do Orange County, both the recent Jumanji films, and this one, another one that I've only been able to find on VHS. And it stars Bill Pullman, Ben Stiller, Kim Dickens, Angela Featherstone, Ryan O'Neal, and it's pretty much Bill Pullman plays Daryl Zero, self-proclaimed world's greatest detective, but he has rules where he never meets with clients, and he does his own unorthodox type of investigation. And the man who works closest to him is Steve Arlo, played by Ben Stiller. And Ben Stiller is trying to maintain his relationship with his wife, played by Angela Featherstone, and he's always on call to Daryl Zero, who has all these like eccentric methods and demands and stuff. And his latest case is a man played by Ryan O'Neal who has lost a set of keys, essentially a set of keys, but on the key is the key to a safety deposit box, and he is being blackmailed by someone. And Zero himself gets involved with an EMT played by Kim Dickens, who may or may not be involved in some form or another. But as the movie goes on, as I already said before, I'm a fan of voiceover and narration. He there's frequent voiceover, him reading quotes or passages from his soon to be published or soon to be written or some autobiography, and they're just fascinating little facts about being a private detective, investigating methods and stuff. Yeah, it's a really, really, really entertaining watch. Zero Effect. Number 6, we have one that I guess balances the line between known and unknown, or well-known and lesser known. It's from 2005, and it's a movie called The Skeleton Key. And this one is directed by Ian Softly. Stars Kate Hudson, Jenna Rollins, John Hurt, Peter Sarsgaard, and it's pretty much Kate Hudson gets a job as not a housekeeper, but sort of like a personal attendant to John Hurt's character, who's bedridden and incapacitated for the most part. And I believe he is it's a nursing home. He's hired by Jenna Rollins, and she's hired to take care of Jenna Rollins' husband, played by John Hurt. And Peter Sarsgaard plays the lawyer who manages the estate. And there's a lot of strange occurrences that go on, and there's because it's down in, I believe, in Louisiana, so there's a lot of hints of voodoo in there, voodoo and hoodoo, and very, very beautiful, lush-looking surroundings, like a lot of like the drooping trees and the woods and the swamps and stuff. And it gets very mysterious because it's on this list, but it also gets kind of creepy at times, because John Hurt's character starts to exhibit, like he starts coming out of his almost like catatonic state and trying to communicate with her, like trying to get her to help him, and she wants to help him, but Jenna Rollins has certain rules where like you can't go to certain parts of the house, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this in order if you want to work here. And it's really, really interesting how the story plays out here. And as an added bonus, and I never noticed this when I watched this in the theater, but I noticed it when I watched it years later on DVD, and plays over the credits, but it's an amazing Elvis Presley song called "If I Can Dream." And I don't know that I was as big a fan of him then as I am now, or when I watched this for like the second or third time. It's like, oh wow, how did I not notice this was playing during the credits? Excellent. So sit through the credits for a great Elvis song. The Skeleton Key. Number 5, we have a film called Original Sin from 2001. And this one stars Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie primarily. You've also got Thomas Jane in there, Jack Thompson. That's largely the most recognizable actors in it. And it's pretty much, Antonio Banderas plays Luis Vargas, and he is owns a rich coffee plantation. And he it's not like a mail order bride thing. He sends away to for a potential bride who will come there and meet him and eventually get married because he's lonely and he's looking for companionship. And the woman who shows up is Angelina Jolie playing Julia Russell. But she's not exactly how she looked in the pictures that were sent or the letters that she sent, and her reasoning is she didn't want him to be only interested in her looks, but she's not all who she appears to be, and a little bit on him too. He made himself seem a lot less high stature as he actually is. But they do get married, but then things quickly turn south and she absconds with all his money. And Thomas Jane, who's a local detective, he enlists his help to track her down. But he may not be all he pretends to be. It's a lot of people aren't who they seem in this film. But it's a beautiful looking film, little on the risque side in terms of love scenes, I suppose. But a great soundtrack, a great Gloria Estefan song that it's one of those where the song plays over the credits, but there's sort of like the bass melody from the song that plays throughout the film. Yeah, it's a beautiful looking film, and it's a great mystery. Original Sin. Number 4, and this is one I just watched in the last couple weeks, I think. It's a film from 2015, Australian film called Backtrack. And it stars Adrian Brody, Bruce Spence, Sam Neill, and Adrian Brody putting on a very convincing Australian accent. And it's directed by Michael Petroni, who did another Australian film that I'm a big fan of, which will appear on another list, called Till Human Voices Wake Us. And this one is Peter Bauer, who is Adrian Brody, is a psychotherapist, but he's a little bit troubled because his daughter was killed a year previous, and his wife barely gets out of bed every day. Basically spends most of her time in bed because she's just completely incapacitated by depression after losing her child. And he has a series of patients that he deals with that are all very odd in their own way. And one in particular who's a young girl and who's very afraid of this train that always goes by, and he doesn't know why. And it also involves Adrian Brody's character going back to his hometown because there was some traumatic event in his childhood that he's long since blocked out. And it starts to creep back in as the movie goes on, as he finds out more and more about his patients, and not about what happened to his daughter, but what happened when he was a kid. And that's where I'll stop, because going into this movie not knowing a lot of what's going to be revealed to you is a bonus. Still a great movie anyway, but it's worth having it revealed to you. So that is Backtrack. Number 3 is a film I just watched like 2 nights ago, and it's from 2018. And I was reminded, because I had seen the preview, looked interesting. I ended up picking up the movie, and then I was going to watch another movie, and I saw it, and the preview came on. I'm like, oh crap, I have that. So I turned that off, put this movie in. And this is called Spinning Man. And this stars Guy Pearce, Pierce Brosnan, Minnie Driver, Clark Gregg. And the premise is Evan Birch, played by Guy Pearce, is a philosophy professor at the local college, and a young girl, Joyce Bonner, goes missing at the lake one day, and the cops show up on his doorstep, led by Pierce Brosnan, because his car, or a car like his, was spotted at the lake the day she disappeared. So naturally, they're zeroing in on him as the prime suspect. Oh, Jamie Kennedy's also in this, and he's not unrecognizable, but he looks very different than how he normally does. He's got like long disheveled hair and glasses and a beard, and he's one of the professors that works with Guy Pearce there at the college. And it's said more than once in the film by Guy Pearce saying, like, can you tell me the truth? Can I tell you the truth? Well, no, I can tell you what I believe to be the truth, or what in my mind I'm convinced of is the truth, my version of the truth. But I can never tell you exactly the truth, because who really knows what that is? And that applies to a lot of this movie, because he doesn't want to help the cops. He's very suspicious of them. But if you have nothing to hide, why would you not cooperate? And I guess Spinning Man's pretty appropriate, because he's trying to spin everything to his advantage, or in a more positive light, in regards to the charges that may be brought against him. But he also has certain issues with his memory. There's certain things in his past that he's not remembering correctly. Like the reasons why they had to leave his last job and move there was because he supposedly had an affair with a student. And whether he did or didn't, I don't know if that's left up to the imagination, but you watch it, you'll see what I mean. But there's also evidence that possibly incriminates him with Joyce's disappearance. But there's also certain things that he may or may not be remembering correctly about events. So it's the dynamic between Guy Pearce and Pierce Brosnan is great, but also between Guy Pearce and Minnie Driver, who plays his wife, and the daughter. It's fascinating. This is a fascinating movie, and like impressive performances. So that's called Spinning Man. Number 2, we have a film I've watched many times over the years. Love this movie. It's from 1996. It's a film by John Sayles called Lone Star. And it stars Chris Cooper, Chris Christopherson, Matthew McConaughey, Elizabeth Pena. And it's essentially, Chris Cooper plays the sheriff in this Texas town that's sort of on the border between Texas and Mexico. And let me see if they say exactly where. Rio County in Frontera, Texas. And Chris Cooper plays Sam Deeds. And there's a military base nearby, and these 2 off-duty military officers, their hobby is using metal detectors and collecting stray bullets from the gun ranges and surrounding area and making sculptures of them. And they end up finding this old sheriff's badge and uncovering a skeleton of a body. And it turns out it was this legendary badass sheriff from like 30 years ago. And it was played by Chris Christopherson, played Charlie Wade. And he was a bad guy, but he pretty much had ruled the town with an iron fist. And one of his deputies was Sam Deeds' father at the time, played by Matthew McConaughey. And he was sort of like a hard-ass parent. And the movie jumps back and forth between present day and 30 years ago. And digging up the body of Charlie Wade brings to light the mystery of Charlie Wade went missing one day 30 years ago. And no one knows what happened to him. Obviously, they find out he's dead, but how did he die? Who killed him? Or how did he die? And if someone killed him, who was that? And the mystery that unfolds is really, really, really interesting. And I'd say it's split pretty evenly between flashbacks and present day. But super well directed film and acted, and the music's great, cinematography's great. Just the editing is top notch in this film. The way they structure the film. Yeah. So, Lone Star. Number 1, I had mentioned before that I had meant to see Knockaround Guys in the theater. I went there for a double feature. I went to London and I watched Ghost Ship, and then I was going to either watch Knockaround Guys or Abandon. I ended up watching Abandon, which is number 1, Abandon. And this one was Stephen Gaggen's directorial debut. The guy who won an Oscar for writing Traffic, and he directed Gold, Doolittle, Syriana. But this was the one he started with, and it stars Katie Holmes, Charlie Hunnam, Benjamin Bratt. You've also got Gabriel Mann, Zoe Deschanel, Fred Ward, Mark Feuerstein, Melanie Linsky, Gabriel Union, Tony Goldwyn. And sort of Katie Holmes is a student, and she's looking to get a job as, completing her thesis and trying to get a job getting a good job in a great company. And Benjamin Bratt comes around because his family, the family of Charlie Hunnam's character, Embry Larkin, has reignited the investigation into his disappearance 2 years ago. And Katie Holmes was involved in relationship with Embry Larkin. Katie Holmes plays Katie Burke, and he was a very eccentric student, rich family, put on a lot of plays at the school. He was in drama, and then one day gone, disappeared. And 2 years later, this cop comes around and digging up, reigniting the investigation, and investigating Katie and her friends and what actually happened. And as soon as he shows up, she starts seeing Embry Larkin various places she goes. And it's like, well, people think he disappeared, but he just, him being eccentric and rich, just flew off to Greece or wherever for a couple of years, and now he's possibly back. She keeps seeing him everywhere. And it is such a cool movie. Charlie Hunnam, it was the first time I'd seen him. I think he did Nicholas Nickleby, which I still haven't seen. It came out the same year, but I think this was his American film debut. This was my first experience seeing Charlie Hunnam on the big screen. And obviously he's gone on to bigger and better things with Pacific Rim, or more notably Sons of Anarchy. But he did a fantastic job in this film. And so did Katie Holmes. She's front and center in this film, and Charlie Hunnam just kind of gets sprinkled in. And there's flashbacks to their relationship 2 years ago and present day, and then there's him seeing her seeing him, interacting with him in present day. But yeah, this is another one that's structured very well in how the story is, how Stephen Gaggen tells the story. So that is Abandon. From 2002. So, yeah, that's the end of that list, top 10 mysteries. I hope you liked this one as well. So, like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Toodles.